going on, everyone? My name's Alex. That's Eileen, and you're watching Straight to the Chicane podcast. And this week we are talking about the Dutch GP.
The Dutch GP.
And this was at the Zandvoort.
The Zandvoort track, yes.
So it was like Sandy and
Sandy and Zandy.
Sandy and Zandy. Yeah, and it was a little sandy out there for those guys.
It always is.
Because it is really close to the
beach.
The beach, yes.
It's on the beach.
What's going on, everyone? If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe. We are always welcoming and hearing from people from all over the world, and we want to keep in touch with all you guys. So come say hi, come comment, whatever it is. So this week we are about the Dutch GP.
Yes.
And
Max's home race.
Yeah, one of three, I hear. You know,
one of three, but this is very much the true home. Like, yeah. I think if you're not wearing orange at the Dutch GP, you're kind of like, you're a little bit an outsider.
Yeah, this is definitely, I would consider this his home race more so than the Austria race or what's the other one?
Belgium.
Belgium, thank you.
Part Belgium. Part Belgian? Yes. So, I wonder if they sell any other merchandise at the Dutch Grand Prix, like any other teams. I did see a few Ferrari caps.
A few.
Yeah.
There was a few. Yeah. So leading up until this week, because this is the middle of the triple header coming out of the summer break, there was still a little bit of drama stuff, things that happened last week with Lewis and Fernando.
The Lewis-Fernando drama.
Yeah.
We called it. We knew there was going to be some media hype around it. They would be together for media day, and they were. Yeah,
but they seem to have squashed it. I think cooler heads prevailed by literally Lewis signing a hat for Fernando, and they took the photo and played their parts with that.
Good to see.
Yeah.
Adult-like behavior.
We also have still the silly season going on. Still, we didn't have a full answer on everything that was happening with all of the drivers' positions. We still don't really know.
Well, we don't, but we do know where Oscar Piastri's going, finally, after all of the drama that has ensued with the Alpine McLaren. My God, thank you. The dust has settled, so now I think we'll start to see this is what we were waiting for. We were waiting for this ball to drop. So it has been confirmed that Piastri will drive for McLaren starting in 2023.
Yeah, so they also had the court ruling, and they ruled that McLaren's contract was legal and binding, and they accepted it. So that means the AlphaTauri contract, I'm sorry, not the AlphaTauri, the Alpine, thank you, contract was over, and they had McLaren's going to have to pay Alpine.
Like legal fees, they're going to have to pay. It's $500,000 in total between Piastri, McLaren, their legal fees, all the amount of money that they spent. But the interesting thing is that the contract for Piastri and McLaren was signed on July 4th, which was the day after Silverstone.
And then I know that Ricciardo on the 15th or 14th.
July 13th, Ricciardo put a message out. He didn't have a press conference, but he posted on Instagram that he was fully committed through the end of next year to McLaren. So he had no recollection, but he's stating there obviously was discussions about his performance and what he needed to do better, but not that they had signed a contract. And he got in front of the whole McLaren team saying that he was committed, and kind of a low blow.
It is. It's a little shady, but this is the name of the game. I mean, look how professional sports here are in America. All kinds of deals are being made. So it's just the name of the game. He's a professional athlete. I think he'll still find a seat somewhere. There's been talk already.
There's been a lot of talk.
Yeah, so.
Is he going to Haas? Is he going to be the Mercedes reserve driver?
Yeah, I feel certain different ways about all that. So I don't know. All we do know now is that for sure he's not going to be there next year. Oscar Piastri is going to be there. Do you think, with all the hype now that Oscar Piastri is dealing with, he hasn't even raced one race in Formula One, is he going to have to live up to a higher standard?
Oh my God, 1,000%. Okay. I mean, the pressure is on for him, coming into F1. Not that it already wasn't, but now more so than ever with all this media hype around him signing for McLaren and just the drama. So we are excited to see Oscar come into F1.
We are.
Good luck. We're wishing him the best. I think it's going to be challenging. I think that McLaren definitely seems to put a lot of emphasis for Lando. So I hope that they give him the same, priorities and the same attention, especially being a new driver, because he's going to definitely have, some learning curves.
Yeah, he burned a bunch of bridges for sure, and he's definitely limiting what he's going to be able to do after McLaren, or what could his next move after that would be, and because Alpine had different plans for him.
They did. Well, they also didn't know that Fernando was planning on leaving. So
no,
they were factoring in that Fernando was going to stay. They were trying to get one more year
out of him, yeah.
So he was going to go to Williams, and the rumor was that the Renault engine was going to go
to
Williams.
Yeah, so Alpine was going to take Oscar Piastri, put him to Williams in the Latifi seat. Mm-hmm. That was what their plan was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of blew up in their face.
There's so many factors that go into it that I feel like that's why we haven't heard any other driver announcements, because this one person so much weight on them. So, so on the opposite end of the spectrum, Piastri has now put out his statements in regards to what happened, that he was fully transparent, him and his team. His manager is Mark Webber.
Yeah.
So they said to pretty much everybody, apparently not Otmar, that he was going to be signing a contract and leaving Alpine at the end of the season. But I don't know. And so that's why he was like, I was devastated and disappointed, and now I couldn't even go back to say goodbye to people because of this relationship piece. And I was open and honest that I wasn't going to be here. Even if he didn't sign with McLaren, he wasn't going to be there. So who knows?
Yeah.
It's an interesting take on a lot of things.
It is. And then we still had a couple of things up in the air. And I know you have been talking to me about, like, Gasly possibly leaving, AlphaTauri and going somewhere.
Well, the rumor is that Gasly's close to signing a contract with Alpine.
At the end of today's race, at the end of Dutch race, at the Dutch GP, we heard from some of the commentary that there's strong talks with that. Was it Colin Herter? Mm-hmm. He's an IndyCar driver. He is planning on. He's signed.
He's trying to get his super license, and if he can get his super license by the end of the season, then he will sign with AlphaTauri. Yep. But does that mean that he's taking Gasly's seat? Tsunoda hasn't signed for me, but I know that in Gasly's contract, I think that if they find a good driver that has potential to take the seat, then he's released.
Yeah.
Which we saw Gasly sign again with AlphaTauri at the beginning of this year.
I know. He just had he hasn't had the greatest season. He's had a lot of 10th and 11ths, a lot of 11ths.
Yeah, it hasn't been a good season for him compared to last year.
But Yuki has been struggling too a little bit, and he's had some issues, especially this weekend.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
And some things. So that kind of, the silly season of all these teams are still kind of up in the air. We don't really know. We're starting to see some pieces fall in.
Mm-hmm. It's going to get really silly here soon. So Mick Schumacher is expected to cut ties with Ferrari at the end of this year too. Yeah. So he's the other rumored person to go to Alpine.
Yeah.
We all know that Ocon wants Schumacher to be his teammate. And I don't know if that's, is Ocon just he wants somebody that he can kind of mentor, whereas Gasly's obviously got about the same experience as him. They both have 100 races under their belt.
They don't get are they friends? I don't think they get along.
I don't know. He's been very open, Ocon, for sure. So not sure what's going to happen. I think also Helmut Marko and Mick's mom were walking into the paddock and pictured this weekend. So there was also the rumor of Mick going to AlphaTauri. Who knows what's going to happen?
That could be a good move for him. I would like to see that. I could see that.
I think that would, if
I figured here, I didn't even think he would ever not be a Ferrari driver. I figured he was going to be a Ferrari engine driver.
Well, he's making a smart choice early in his career.
Well,
based on Ferrari the last few years.
Yeah, they're being clowns, man. I don't know what's going on with them. This weekend, they made some mistakes again. At
least it wasn't Leclerc, I
know. It was Carlos and his team. They both made mistakes, man. It was tough. So we still don't know what's going on with the driver stuff. So that kind of leads us up into this weekend. And everyone was saying that, Red Bull is not going to be as strong here.
Well, that's because free practice 1, Max broke down.
Yeah.
10 minutes into free practice 1.
He
so
did.
We were like, oh my God, it was a gearbox issue. Huge recovery from Red Bull for the weekend. Mm-hmm. They were able to, even free practice 2, I think he was like P7.
He was not looking as strong. And honestly, Ferrari and Mercedes were looking really good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so come Saturday, it was like Red Bull, they found it overnight. I'm sure
they worked into the wee hours.
They stayed late.
Whilst
they ran.
Everyone else was sleeping.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody was up doing their thing, but huge recovery from Red Bull to, get Max into good position for his home race.
Yeah.
But, the spotlight was definitely on that. We had 3 teams competing at the top, 6 drivers. Mm-hmm. And this was our closest qualifying of the year.
Yeah, they were all really, I mean, it was like within a tenth between first and second.
It was 0.021.
Yeah, that's...
So.
And then...
And Charles was up on Max to the last 100 meters. That's how close it was.
It was a drag race to the end there.
Yeah, so... Yeah. Qualifying, I feel like, was pretty exciting, Like, we didn't really know what was going to happen with the top 3 teams, with all 6 drivers. There wasn't any crazy penalties going into this weekend, so that was nice. We didn't have that factor. We knew Williams was going to be out pretty much in Q1, they said.
Yeah.
Alfa Romeo, which we did end up seeing Joe and Albon get through to Q2. And we saw Stroll get through to Q3. I thought this was the first time all season that he had gotten through, but apparently he got through in Miami as well. So, but he did, kick up some dust onto the track that ended up messing up Vettel's lap and Ricciardo's lap. So they were both out in Q1. So,
yeah, they were looking. Even Ricciardo was looking tough, man. He did not do well.
In the race or?
In the qualifying.
Yeah. But what they're saying is that, and you saw it in Seb's first sector. He had a purple sector in Q1.
Seb?
Yeah. And then there was dust or something, Sandy and Zandy. On the track from Stroll. Yeah. And then it messed up Vettel. Vettel ended up going out, and then that messed up Ricciardo's lap.
Yeah, messed it up.
So.
Yeah. So that was the big thing. And then we got into Q3, and there was some times coming in. It came down to the last few minutes like it always does. Mm-hmm. And we saw some people putting some really good laps. Leclerc was sitting on pole briefly. Mm-hmm. And then Max came around, put himself on pole.
And then Carlos.
And then Carlos came in second.
No,
third.
He was right. I think he was 1/10 down.
Oh yeah,
Max,
yeah. So. And then we
had Perez, and the Mercedes were last to swing around because
they always
Stroll actually didn't compete in Q3 because he
didn't. He just sat and took 10th.
No, he had an engine issue.
He just took 10th.
Yeah, he just took 10th. He was satisfied with being in Q3.
Yes.
And then somehow Tsunoda secured Q3, but I don't even know about his lap. But yes, we saw those 3, the Ferraris, Max come in, and we really weren't even paying attention to the Mercedes. I don't even know if their times were on the screen at that point.
Yeah.
It was Carlos and then Perez's time. And then it was we cut to Perez spinning and yellow flags, and both the Mercs had to
slow down. Off. Yep, they had to kill their lap.
Yes, which I think it was less than 100th. Lewis was down to Max. So it would have been interesting. Lewis potentially could have been on the front row.
Yeah, instead of in 4th, yeah.
Don't know if he would have got pole, but yes. It was good to see. I mean, hey, listen, this is what we've been waiting for, is a qualifying where we see all 3 teams.
Yeah, I think we've been hoping for that all season. At the beginning of the year, there was a good 2-team lead for sure. And then Max has kind of took in the reins and he's won the last 4.
He's won the last 4 races in a row.
Yeah,
yes.
He's starting to pull away here.
What do you mean? He's he's 109 points clear
of his teammate.
Well, his teammate and Charles are tied now officially after today's race.
That's good.
But yes.
And then so that puts Charles in front of him because of the more first place wins. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. That's why you said that. So that kind of set us up for the race. We had Max home race in first. And then we had the 2 Ferraris. Oh, he's ready to play and attack. Good old Donnie.
He wants to talk F1.
Yeah.
Always.
Always.
If you've watched any previous.
Yeah, so that kind of led us up to that. Lewis was in 4th. I forget who sat in 5th.
It was Sergio.
Sergio in 5th, and then behind him was Russell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of, the front row, the front few teams right there kind of set them up. Right off the start,
I was confused that everyone was going to be on softs with the exception of, it was Lando, I think.
No hards.
Well, no hards, but there was only like 4 that were on mediums, which was, I guess the biggest front runners would be Lewis and George were on mediums. So who's going for 1 stop, who's going for 2 stops? So
yeah, I didn't, honestly, I figured with the tire degradation that we noticed in practice and stuff like that, I was like, oh, for sure, 2 stop.
Yeah, they did say it was much cooler today than it was yesterday, so that obviously could have been a factor for it. But yeah, so right from the start, I had a little PTSD moment from Spa that Lewis was going to take himself out again when he tapped into Carlos on turn 1.
Yeah, so it was all right. It seemed like nobody got off to a great start. It all kind of seemed a little sluggish.
Except for Max.
Well, Max, I mean, but he was in 1st, so he kept his spot. But like he wasn't like pulling away crazily.
He was over like a second clear on the first lap.
After the first lap, yeah.
The lap time is 1:16, so that's pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, he did all right, but like right in that before the first turn, he didn't get away as fast as I thought he was going to get away. No one got away super clean. There was a little bit of an issue for all the front runners. Lewis, he kind of got off a little slow.
Yeah, and Lewis had a bad start.
And he kind of took the inside line and kind of crept up on the Ferrari with Carlos, and they touched. Mm-hmm. And
luckily there was no damage to any car.
Yeah, and then everyone else kind of kept coming around.
The interesting thing for me was, I mean, the Alpines, we forgot to say, were out in Q2, which was like the first we've seen in some time.
Yeah.
But they had amazing starts.
That's right.
So they were up quickly in the first lap, and also George fell behind Lando on the opening lap. So, but yeah, no, Max took off the first few laps. Charles was within DRS
for a moment, and then
for like 5 or 6 laps. I mean,
and then fell out. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a pretty standard opening. We didn't see any chaos. We saw 1 yellow flag because of Magnussen going off, hitting the wall or the barrier, briefly. But the car was okay.
Car's good to go. Kept it going. Kept it moving.
Kept it moving. So
it seemed like it was a harder hit than it probably really was, and luckily those techno barriers are really made it take a lot of that impact.
Yeah, we didn't see any issues with gravel because they did the whatever.
The fake gravel.
It's not fake gravel though. They kept saying it was fake gravel, and it was like, oh, they're testing out fake gravel. And I'm like, but it's real gravel. They're just putting something over top of it.
It's like glued down so it stays there and doesn't fall onto the track. And so
that was good.
Yeah, so you still have the rumbling of the gravel, but you don't have the mess of it going onto the track.
So,
which I think is a lot of other tracks are going to adopt. I think it actually was a success.
Yeah.
I liked it too.
What about the DRS in the final bank turn?
I think it helped. I mean, there was a lot more overtaking. That was the only place to overtake this weekend, for sure.
There's a lot of overtaking in turn 1. That was like the turn.
Yeah. So they're taking the speed from the banking and
but you had to be like within a half a second.
They were and then the announcers were also saying that you needed to have a second and a half pace per lap to get this overtake. But I would tell you that it was probably less than that because there was, even though Max was very, very fast this weekend, and he had some good times when we did it at the start, and then when he was passing Lewis there at the end, I don't think there was a pace difference of 1.5 seconds. Mm-hmm. I think it was much closer than that.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think even at the time, Lewis had a few fastest laps. They were kind of the top few teams were all kind of trading fastest laps there at the end of this race.
Yeah, and Max got fastest lap on the restart lap.
Yeah,
because he was like gunning. I'm gone, and just like pedal to the metal. And so he got fastest lap. Because for a minute there, it was George and Lewis leading up into the final.
Yeah, this race was kind of crazy. It was setting up with Max being in front for a while, but then some early pit stops happened because all the soft tires were starting to go.
Yeah.
And then we had the people that stayed on the mediums, which is Mercedes.
Yeah.
And they stayed long, and it started to fall into Mercedes' hands. And on paper, you could see that they were beginning to possibly be able to overcut.
Potentially.
Okay,
before we get to that, we have to talk about the fact that, so it was the top 3. It was actually the top 4. Mm-hmm. Perfect order, doing their thing. First person to pit was Carlos. So there was the battle going down. Lewis was like trying to overtake him. There was a few chances where he, went for it, but lost it. And so then he was just about to get him on the main straight. Yeah. And then he came into the pits. Carlos did. Right behind Carlos came in Sergio.
He got called in too, and they weren't ready for him.
Well, I think it was a last-minute decision by him.
You think so?
Yeah, because I feel like his tires were going. He was struggling.
Okay.
And Lewis was going to catch him. Like, that was the lap for him to get overtaken. So he's like, okay, if I want to get track position on pit stop strategy. And
maintain,
I'm going to come in. So he comes in. Where is Ferrari?
Ferrari,
in the garage.
Most of them are in the garage. They don't have any tires out, and he's pulling in.
What a mess! They get
3 of those tires on fairly quickly,
and there is no 4th tire.
No
rear left,
and they had to wait for that rear left, and that took over 10 seconds.
It was a 12.7 second pit stop. Sergio was behind him, and it was like 12.7 seconds. The wheel gun's on the ground. Sergio comes out, runs the wheel gun over.
Yeah, there's going to be some fines, I think.
We still haven't heard the news on that just yet.
Yeah,
so.
I think it was within their box, so Sergio is going to get fined, I think, for hitting it.
I don't know.
But there's
I hope not.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what.
By far, the craziest. Carlos was like, oh my God, on the radio. And then they ended up getting Mattia on like whatever live.
On the
and
commentary,
they're like, what happened? He's like, it was a mess.
That's all it was.
Bottom line, it was a mess. So
it's week after week, it seems like.
It's always something. And, then I'm like, oh my God, Charles is going to be so scared to even just come into the pits because that's what happened.
But then when he came in, his pit stop was good.
His pit stop was good. So
it was 2.3.
Yep, Max came in, and he came in.
2.3 or 2.2 or
Lewis was leading, going long on the mediums.
Yeah, it was looking good for Mercedes this weekend. I was like, this is Hamilton's week to win. Although I've been trying to call that for a few weeks now, and I've been wrong.
You know what? The one thing, I can say is they are in the running for it, so that was good to see. But Lewis led a decent amount of laps in this, So, and he was on course after his pit stop to be on the charge to come back. So, it was a little strange.
Yeah,
see
so
the next events that
so
then popped out.
All the first rounds of pit stops all kind of happened. We starting to see how things are shaking out. Again, it's starting to look really good for Mercedes because they went so long.
And Max was on tires that he was going to have to go like 50-something laps on those
mediums.
And
then he was still going to need because he went soft medium, so he was going to need need to stop again for sure.
Just based on the tire situation. Mm-hmm. So, and the thing was this weekend everybody looked good on the hards. Mm-hmm. So Mercedes had crazy pace on the hards. They were, getting past. They were back in 2-3 position on the hunt towards Max. Less than 10-second difference. I think we were down to like 6 at some point. And then who do we see? Yuki Tsunoda.
So Yuki Tsunoda has some sort of issue. He comes out of the pits after his stop. Mm-hmm. And either he's claiming that one of the tires isn't fitted right. Mm-hmm. They have him pull over. He pulls over into a kind of a tough spot. Yellow flags.
Yeah, just yellow flags.
And then they say on his team goes, hey, everything looks fine. Mm-hmm. Keep it going. Bring it in. They bring him in. I think personally, I could be wrong. I think he undid his seatbelt because he was going to get out of the car, and then they told him to bring it in.
Who knows what happened?
So he kept going, and he brought it into the pits. And
get some new tires. So he was on like hards. Then they put him on softs. So I'm like, okay, he's literally dead last. Then they're trying to figure out his seatbelt.
I don't know if whatever it was. They're definitely were in the front of his
for 31 seconds.
Yeah.
The standing pit time,
yeah.
Not even the full pit time. Then they release him out, and he's going like he left the box going like 1 mile an hour. When you leave the pit box, you're like. Tires are squealing because you're trying to get back onto the track.
There was something wrong.
He's going like 1 mile an hour, slow as possible to get back on track, gets out on track, barely leaves the pit exit, and is like, something's wrong, something's broken. So then pulls over.
Yeah.
And we get a freaking virtual safety car. Which
I think is okay because it kind of neutralizes everything that's happening. No one can gain any position because if you're a Lewis fan, you're like, all right, regular safety car, and he's going to be able to come up right behind Max. And because of the tire situation, Max is on older tires. This could be interesting. However, it was a virtual safety car, so it left everything kind of
So everybody
flat.
came in for the virtual safety car. So Max went to hards.
Not for the virtual, right?
Yep. Lewis and George went to mediums, another set of new mediums. And we were back to racing again.
Yeah, for a few laps, and then Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, Lewis is in first at this point.
Yep.
George is in second. Valtteri breaks down on the straight. All during this time, I'm like, Carlos is on the charge. He overtakes under a yellow flag.
That was borderline.
He's trying to give position back. That's just the yellow flag. Then they call the safety car.
Yep.
So then it was like, what are we going to do? Max goes into the pits. It was literally like Abu Dhabi.
Well, then they were bringing everybody through the pits because of where Bottas's car was.
Right. So they on the screen had that like Lewis pitted, Max pitted again, and I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But they didn't actually stop again. So Max got new tires. Perez got new tires. Leclerc got new tires. George made the call to come in for softs.
Last minute.
Yeah, like
which worked out for him.
Had to brake to like let the Williams go through a little bit quicker so he could get to the pit lane. Got the new tires, comes out, the virtual safety car's ending. All lapped cars may unlap themselves. Yep. Another PTSD moment.
And then we had Lewis in the front on some slightly older mediums that were going to make it to the end just fine. And then everyone else right behind him all on some brand new softs. And, green flag, didn't even make it out of turn one. Max right by him right away. Really quickly. And Lewis was not happy. Not the happiest of campers.
Not the happiest of campers. I don't know if I've ever heard him swear like that on the radio.
He has since apologized from what I hear. Max took the lead and never really looked back. Then Lewis got passed by his teammate, which they had a fight for. There was a close moment in that.
There was almost a Baku Red Bull moment.
Kind of.
Daniel Ricciardo Verstappen. It got a little close there.
Yeah.
A little scary.
Yeah, I think just Lewis wasn't on the right tires at that time.
No, George like cut over. It was weird. I don't know if he just like lost grip or something or whatever, but Sandy and Sandy. Yeah. He said that they like to keep it close is what he said.
That's right. Yeah. Whatever. I mean, if it's a healthy relationship, whatever it is, what it is. So then that kind of set it up for the end because then after Lewis gave up second place, he then was going to be getting passed. He got passed by Leclerc to give up third. And he couldn't really hold on against those guys on those soft tires after that.
I'll tell you what, Perez was on the charge, so Carlos was in fifth, which he ends up getting the 5-second penalty because it got worse for Carlos, guys.
It did.
He doesn't believe he had an unsafe release, but there was an unsafe release in the pit lane.
It was pretty bad.
And he almost hit, I don't know if it was, I think it was Fernando. And so whatever, he ended up getting a 5-second penalty. We don't know if Red Bull didn't tell Perez that there was a 5-second penalty or if Perez was just fighting to get past him because he wanted to get past Lewis too. But they ended up going into a turn. Perez got pushed wide, went into the gravel, lost a lot of time because the way it was looking for me, Perez was getting past Carlos and Perez was going to get Hamilton before the end of the race.
Yeah.
He had the pace.
He did have the pace.
Yeah.
And there was possible. You're right about that.
And he was on new mediums.
Yeah.
And he pit too.
Yep.
So
it was gonna be it was up and down this race.
Oh my God, it was kind of stressful. My heart rate was like up and down.
Yeah,
and the safety car, the virtual safety car.
And then at the end, I kind of fell flat because then it was like, oh yeah, Max has got this now. Mm-hmm. And pretty dominant. 4 races in a row.
10th of the season.
Yeah,
so,
he's pretty dominant this year. This year he's almost got it in the bag. Almost.
Well, we've got 6 races left. He just has to win 4 more this season, which is a lot. To beat Vettel's record of 13 wins in one season. Yeah, wow. So it's under pressure for him to take that record this season.
So then leaving here, we go to Monza for the last of the triple header before they get a little bit of a break. Anything else you want to say? Monza's going to be crazy.
Monza's going to be crazy. I hope we see Mercedes be able to have speed again next week.
We need Ferrari to come with some speed, too. Maybe some new engines or something.
No, I did hear it was confirmed after the race that Carlos is fitting a new PU that's going to make his car a little bit lighter. So we're going to Ferrari's home turf next week.
Yep.
The Temple of Speed. So hopefully it's a little bit more competitive for them. Yeah. They'll have the fan energy there, so that'll be good.
Hopefully.
Yes. For me, the only other thing is I could not believe how many times Ricciardo was forced to pit this race. It was 5 times.
It was a lot.
Every time I looked up, there was Daniel Ricciardo coming out of the pits.
Why? Yeah, I don't know. They definitely made him pit a lot, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know.
So he ended P17.
Yeah, which was where he should not have been. He should have been up higher.
Yeah, very strange. Very strange. Yeah. So, okay, driver of the day for you.
I know they gave it to Max. Mm-hmm. I probably will go with George Russell for coming in second, being able to pass his teammate, making the right call last minute, going on those softs was the right move. I wish from
P6 too.
Yeah, Lewis started 4th, finished 4th. Mm-hmm. Yeah. George Russell.
Okay.
What about you?
I think I'm gonna go with Alonso. He started 13th. He ended 6th. Mm-hmm. Alonso definitely had the most overtakes this race.
Okay.
And he was. Listen. Before his first pit stop, he was like on the move. A lot of great moves into turn 1 on like the AlphaTauris immediately.
There was some decent passing on turn 1.
Yeah.
I saw there were a couple of other spots where they tried to do some passing, but mostly it was all turn 1 coming out of that straight. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fernando looked good. Yeah. But George had a great race.
He had a good race. He well-deserved, made the right call. That's who I was going with, and you got Fernando. What else you got for me?
What I'm going to say is...
Because you had a lot earlier, you're like, I'm going in.
Oh, my God. I was, like, really fired up. I was really fired up. Honestly, for me, I need to see Lewis's... I have to see a win this season. So, I'm feeling positive for him. Mercedes in general.
They're looking good. They're looking a lot better, a lot closer. Hopefully this wasn't truly a true one-off.
No, and I think they're obviously being heavily criticized, myself included, right now for their strategy and, for the whole situation of George pitting. That was a decision George made, and at the end of the day, it sounds like if George wouldn't have pitted, then neither car would have ended on the podium.
Probably.
So they did secure some points. Lewis still was able to maintain P4. It sucks that he wasn't on the podium, and really I do think that he could have been fighting for the win without the safety cars, without the safety car, shall I say, because even with the VSC, I think he could have still been fighting for it. Mm-hmm. They had good pace, but it's going to come. I still feel confident.
Yeah, and I hope even Ricciardo, honestly, gets a win or a podium here.
It's a little far off right now. I think that he's now that not only, I don't think it's him, but I think there's
his team is giving up on him?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of demotivation in him on his part, but also on the team. Like, there's just not a lot of effort there. And I think just today goes to show, like, I don't know. Maybe there's rhyme or reason as to why he had to pit 5 times, but
I don't know.
I think they were using him to have like a tire understanding and get that information to be able to utilize that for Lando.
Yeah.
Because after he pit and was forced to go on the hards, they brought Lando in because they were working, you know? So just, I don't think it's within range for him. I definitely think there's going to be some points finishes. I just don't see him getting on the podium. But
bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, this season's shaping up to be a lot different than what we thought it was going to be, for sure. If you haven't heard our previous episodes, we've talked about what we'd like to see. You know, a lot more of these younger drivers to get their first wins. Like, we're starting to get into these last few.
We have 6 races left,
and we still haven't seen George Russell's first win. Mm-hmm. Still haven't seen Lando's first win. You know.
Yeah, I know.
We were lucky. We got Carlos's.
We did get Carlos. We got Carlos pole.
So we were able to check that one off.
We did get a George pole.
Yep.
Lando got his last year. So we've seen the younger generation all get their first poles, which is good to see. But, yeah, so the battle for P2 and the constructors is still heavily on. After today, it's only a 30-point difference between Ferrari and Mercedes.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna see a tight battle between those two. Red Bull's definitely running away, even though Christian Horner's like, well, we're just going to take it one race at a time. They're winning by, like, I don't know, almost 200 points or something ridiculous. So
yeah, almost 200
it's their
points.
Championship to lose. Max can win the Drivers' Championship as early as Singapore. We will be at the race after Singapore, so potentially Max will be winning the championship in the United States.
We'll see.
Which will be lit and crazy. But I'll be, very excited either way. It'll be a good celebration, but definitely some good momentum this weekend. Good to see some good racing. Last year at the Dutch Grand Prix, it was kind of boring. Max won by 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So I think it was a lot more exciting this year.
And then before we truly get out of here, I want to talk about, because this race in particular, the orange smoke.
Oh, God, I forgot.
The
We've
amount
talked about this in previous races.
We have. But the amount of orange smoke and the defiant guys that threw the orange smoke onto the track
during qualifying, causing a red flag.
Yeah, and that's a little bit uncalled for, and I think they should be kicked out. They were threatening kicking people out, whether they did or didn't, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they did find him because the fans in the audience were pretty mad. So there's photos of that.
You were showing me some. Was that the photos of that particular incident?
After the situation where the red flag came out. So it's funny because on their signage going into race weekend, it said you need to leave your flares at the gate, and then there were still flares. But compared to last year. You remember how it was
Well, last year during the formation lap and first lap, there was smoke everywhere.
Oh, my God.
This year, there was no smoke in the beginning of the race at all. Nothing
and
at all.
there really was only a little bit at the end.
There was a decent amount at the end.
There was a couple, but you have to remember, they put off fireworks. So it goes up the whole side.
Yeah.
So there was only a few, orange flares popped, which maybe people just took it seriously when they were threatening on Saturday. But I don't know. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I am not going to pay thousands of dollars to go see the race and have a huge puff of orange smoke. So if you're going to the United States Grand Prix and are a Max Verstappen fan and you're sitting at turn 1, do not bring a flare.
Let it be known. Eileen does not like the flares at turn 1.
Yes, I want to see the action.
For sure. All right, that's all I really had to talk about was because I remembered that the flares. We didn't bring that up until now. Yeah, so we are 1 week away from Monza. We will see you guys again in Monza. If you have any comments or anything like that, if you've made it this far, thank you very much. We would love to know what you guys think about the flares.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Did you like the flares? Is Mercedes going to get a win this year?
Hopefully.
Are we going to see Lewis win in every season of his Formula One career? That's the question that's up for gamble right now.
It's a pretty big question, and it is.
Yeah. Will Ferrari win at home?
Yeah.
Let us know.
All right. Well,
don't forget to subscribe.
All right. That's it for us. We'll see you guys next week. All right. Bye.